This is the state of the nation. Ibifa Uganda. We are deliberate, we are reasonable, we are uncensored. The state of the nation with Henry Sully. All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Henry Sully. This is the state of the nation. A lot of things have been happening. And despite our seeming silence, we have been following closely. And we're excited to be here today. My name, as I said, is Henry Sully. And we're going to be discussing the protection of sovereignty bill, something that has been very interesting to follow. The conversations have been enriching in one way or another. At some point, it has been an eye-opener for what people in power can do. But most importantly, I think we need to make sure that as a people, as a citizen, even when we might be citizens of different countries or dual citizens or triple citizens, it's very interesting to hear these conversations happening in Uganda now. Isaac will be joining us shortly. I believe that many of you have been following closely as well. Dr. Stella Nyanzi, thank you for reposting. Always a pleasure to see you. I know you have been following this as well. As one of the folks in the diaspora, you must be really interested in what is going on. I still regard myself as a citizen of Uganda. So this actually touches me directly, just as it touches many, many of you. Many deliberations have been happening over the last couple of days since the bill was tabled, and comments were also given in Parliament. But that is not the end of the conversation. The conversation continues. We continue to put pressure on our government to keep them accountable on what they are bringing or what they are suggesting to bring to us as a people. Of course, I'm waiting for my colleague, Counsel Isaac Chimeze Ssemakadde, who will be joining us shortly. And I hope you're as excited as I am. Of course, I expect this to be a deep dive into the sovereignty bill. We have a few questions. I personally have a few questions. So one of them, before even start a conversation, is whether Uganda is protecting its sovereignty or redefining its ways that it could limit us from speaking. Is this a scheme to censor dissent? Or is it truly one mechanism to ensure sovereignty of the nation? Tonight, Isaac and I will unpack one of the most consequential bills in recent history, the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026. At stake here are fundamental questions. Who holds the power? Who gets to speak? And what happens when citizens, especially those in the diaspora, are reclassified as foreign agents? These are some of the questions we shall be delving into, and I want to take this opportunity once again to welcome you to this deep dive. As your moderator, I am excited that Isaac Ssemakadde will be joining us. I know he's living in the diaspora right now, so sort of someone who is not in the country directly, but who holds a very important position uh, at the Uganda Law Society as president, but also as the custodian of the radical Nuba. We wanted to hear from him directly what his thoughts are, what he thinks about the protection of sovereignty bill, and what we need to do now that most of the comments have been received by Parliament. What happens next? What should we do as folks in the diaspora? What is our responsibility as citizens of Uganda? And where do we go from here? Uh, of course, I'm sure many of you have questions. So if you do have those questions, don't hesitate to comment. I'll be sharing some of those questions with my colleague. And of course, we shall try to delve into as much as possible in the next 2 hours. Of course, Isaac is in somewhere in East Africa. So I know he's coming, he's trying to log on. But as you know, sometimes technology can be challenging in one way or another. But regardless, we move. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't had an opportunity to delve into some of the intricacies of the bill, I think it's important for you to do so, especially if you live in the diaspora. But even if you don't live in the diaspora, if you are back home uh, and you receive some money from people in the diaspora, I think this is important for you. When do you apply? How do you apply to become an agent who receives funds from the diaspora? What does it take? Why is it important? Has this ever happened before? And if it did, how was it handled? Are we going back to the days of Idi Amin Dada, when certain things, certain permissions were given by the minister, by certain ministers, right? What are the differences between this regime and Mr. Museveni's regime? I mean, what are the differences between Mr. Museveni's regime and Field Marshal Idi Amin's regime, Idi Amin Dada's regime, right? I want to give recognition to some people who have been actively engaging us online. Of course, that includes Counsel Philip Kalugaba, whose discussion I attended that was organized by the Diaspora Forum. He gave us a lot of insights. And of course, I saw him engaged in the conversation at Parliament, which was very encouraging. I also want to thank Dr. Sarah Birete, who has been actively engaged in this conversation. I think she's done an incredible job keeping the government accountable, but also educating some of us in the diaspora. These are our responsibilities, and I think it is important for us to engage in these kinds of conversations, especially as we think of ways to make our country more credible, but also livable for people in that back home, but also for us who live in the diaspora. How do we make home away from home indeed a home that makes us proud to be Ugandans? I think these are some of the things that we should be asking ourselves. We should be engaging with. So my colleague is trying to message me. I'm trying to find out ways to help him to log on. But I appreciate your patience for those of you who have already joined us. Oh, you have to come into the video. He says he's here. Isaac, you have to log into the studio itself through the link that I sent. So if you can log in. I can resend it to you. Let me resend it actually, so that you are able to log in. I appreciate everyone who is here to join us. Thank you so much again. Yeah, if you can click on that link that I just sent you again. So check your inbox. Check your inbox. You should be able to log in. Check your inbox. Check your inbox. Yeah, so the folks that have been asking tough questions, Dr. Stella Nyanzi, those are the questions that we need to really delve into. I saw Kabushenga also hosted one of the conversation, one of these conversations. I appreciate that conversation. Of course, Solomon Serwanja also has been asking tough questions. Our friends from Agora have been engaging in the conversation. This is good. This is really good, and I want to take this opportunity to also thank the people who have been engaging in the background. Sometimes folks are not exactly excited about engaging openly, and that's fine. But if you are in the background and you're engaging and you're asking those tough questions, that is a good thing. For folks who haven't yet submitted your comments about the bill, it's not yet over. Let us continue the conversation. If it means signing petitions, please go ahead, sign those petitions, send them to commission, Ugandan commissions abroad. If you're in the UK, send it to the Ugandan Commission in the UK. If you're in the US, do the same. If you're wherever you are, my friends, don't give up, don't stop now. Of course, as soon as Isaac comes in, he's going to be delving into some of the deeper dives legally, what we are facing, but most importantly, what we should do as citizens. What we should do as citizens to not stop the conversation. I'm playing tech and moderator. So you will please could you please give me some break here, because I'm trying to make sure that the president of ULS comes in to share. As you know, he has been educating a lot of us about law on different forums. For those who are following him on Facebook, you have been seeing a lot of the teaching that he has been doing, which I think is pretty good. That we have these resources. So I thought that for some people who may not have ready access to him, it would be a good opportunity for him to appear live, not just on X, because some people are not ex-natives. So for folks who are ex-natives, you have ready access to him. You see him a lot. For folks who are on Facebook, of course, you have access to him. But there are some people who are on YouTube who do not have ready access to him. Folks who are on LinkedIn and other platforms who may not have ready access to him. This would be a good opportunity to hear from him. Of course, he has finally joined us. I'm gonna put him on the platform. Of course, I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce himself and tell us about, and then we delve into the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Counsel Isaac Chimeze Ssemakadde, President of Uganda Law Society and Chief Custodian of the Radical Nuba. Thank you for being an active advocate of justice but also sharing the knowledge that you have. Delighted to see you. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sali. Please confirm if I'm audible. Perfectly. Well, I think you introduced me quite well. I am Isaac Ssemakadde, the president of the Uganda Law Society, and as you ably put it, the chief custodian of the Radical Nibra. My job right now is to ensure that the fearless and zealous defense of the people of Uganda in all matters concerning the administration of law by the regime of the day. It's therefore befitting that I join you here today to provide some clarity, assurances, and to pick up some insights from our colleagues in the diaspora regarding how best to deal with the latest threat to our sovereignty through this proposed bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again. Without any further ado, let us delve into some of these questions that have been going around the internet, but also through inboxes on WhatsApp and text messages. The fear, what we want to ensure that we unpack the bill, even when we might not have an opportunity right now to submit, to do any more submissions. I think it's important for us to continue this conversation and to push back on what some of your perpetrators are trying to do, specifically the Attorney General. I know you have a kind of, there's some kind of relationship that you have, and we shall delve into that as we continue the conversation. But tell us, teach us what it means, what sovereignty really means, and differentiate the difference between self-sovereignty and nation sovereignty, and what this bill really intends to do at this moment.
Well, in simple terms, sovereignty stands for final authority, ultimate control. It means power. It in the two instruments that we signed at the international level, International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights, 1966, and the International Covenant for Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, 1967. It is talked about in Article 1 in both of those instruments as the right to self-determination of the people in any part of the world. Now, when a people come together in a consultative process to create a state, a sovereign state, they create organs or units of their sovereignty to perform specific activities, specific functions. They don't lose final authority once they've created a specific unit of power. Now, the major units of power that we know are the three branches of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Having created these units of power, these vehicles of power, the people don't lose sovereignty. The people remain the ultimate deciders of the fate of these entities, and these entities are supposed to specifically serve the people in accordance with their will and consent. And so the other aspect of sovereignty is that it resides in our liberty, in our freedom.
Right.
And individually and collectively, it resides in our freedom to think, our freedom to speak, our freedom to associate, our freedom to travel, our freedom to do business with whoever we like, our freedom to marry, our freedom to love, our freedom to enjoy privacy, to be left alone by the state. So we don't lose these freedoms having created these supranational entities in which we shall express our sovereignty. The example I like to use is a neighborhood association. Mostly people in Uganda don't have this, but when you look at the suburbs in America and Canada, really what makes them stand out is that they have a neighborhood association. So the landowners
Yeah.
who own various plots in a particular area, it is encouraged that they form a neighborhood association through which they will assert their communal sovereignty. And
Right.
that neighborhood association can help with specific things like cleaning, security, arrangements, protection against specific threats that the members come up with. It comes up with rules. This allows, safe, clean neighborhoods, and most importantly, it preserves the price of the homes in that area from collapsing. But where we don't have these neighborhood associations, like maybe in Uganda, we have problems where you can't stop somebody from building a church next to residential homes, which makes noise, or a bar. You can't control. But if you have a neighborhood association, you can determine what can be done in your area or not, and that means that's the power of the people, because you are limiting the freedom of a landowner in that area,
Right.
for the interest of the greater good. Yeah. So now, when that neighborhood association, if it's poorly led, it can topple the individual landowners and become the law unto itself. And the
Right.
landowners have to renegotiate the terms of the neighborhood association. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah. So at face value, what problem does this bill try to solve? Right? Because they say that they call it specifically, they call it the protection of sovereignty bill, right? But what is it trying to solve that has not been covered in all the other bills that we have at the moment? And is foreign influence in Uganda a real threat? Or is it just a political framing?
Unfortunately, the sponsoring agency, which is the Ministry of Internal Affairs, has come up with no evidence of a threat that necessitates this bill. In the cabinet memorandum, which they showed to people in Chankwanzi, the NRM leaders retreat, they focused on, ambiguously, they referred to one example of foreign influence affecting lawmaking in Uganda, domestic lawmaking. They said that in the year 2023, they observed overt foreign influence regarding the passing of some legislation in Uganda. Of course, the legislation they're talking about is the Anti-Homosexuality Act,
Right.
and the conversation that it stirred up locally, regionally, and internationally. And they have no other example they have given except the usual tropes they give against NGOs, journalists, activists, and diasporians as agents of foreign, principles. So, to what extent is foreign influence a legitimate threat, a pressing threat that necessitates this law? We haven't seen the evidence. What we have seen
Yeah.
is that the government of Uganda has quite a wide array of legislation for surveillance, giving it extensive surveillance over international business conducted by Ugandans. So there's examples include, the Computer Misuse Act, for instance.
Right.
Yeah, it's extensive. This is a model law governing protecting Ugandans and the sovereignty of Ugandan computer users from foreign hacking and so on and so forth.
Right.
Then you have the NGO Registration Act of 2016. You have the Anti-Terrorism Act. You have the Anti-Money Laundering Act. You have the Penal Code Act. There's really all laws for all sorts of threats that the government has identified, but they give no reason why those laws are insufficient.
Right. So I'm wondering, I'm actually just curious, what stood out to you immediately when you read this bill?
Well, three things stood out immediately. The first is now we have to deal with the incoming influence of AI.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is clear that the bill is AI generated. It has AI slope in it. It lacks human logic. There are parts in it. The whole bill is inconsistent with the existing constitutional and legal, architecture in Uganda. So whoever was writing this bill ought to have been aware. But this is not to say that AI is not smart. So
Mm.
what AI is definitely smarter because most of us have actually used AI to critique this bill, and it has
Right.
given very excellent critiques. So somebody
Mm.
asked these AI machines to provide to provide a copycat of foreign agent registration laws
Right.
from the most despotic regimes that there is maybe out there.
Mm.
So there are foreign agent registration laws across the country, in the global north, in the global south. So somebody must have said, I want what all those things have, but remove the democratic aspects. Just leave
Interesting.
only despotic aspects, and the
Right.
machine will just give you that. The other thing is, so that's the first threat. The first thing that came to mind is like, okay, now we are no longer writing laws organically. We are
Using these tools.
we are using these tools, and this
Yeah.
is going to present all sorts of problems, as you have seen.
Yeah.
The from the from the wide range of concern by
Mm.
literally every sector of society. This the the author
Right.
of the bill ought to have applied human logic and narrowly tailored the bill to specific things government wants to achieve. But it appears then that that's what government wanted to achieve. It wanted to achieve a full blanket over civilian life, a full military police state blanket over civilian life, and that's what they have done. So we have on our part the second thing, of course, that creates is now we have a constitutional coup, at least an attempt at a
Mm.
constitutional coup, because the bill is, as you see, besides the name, it's a protection of sovereignty, but in the content, it
Mm.
is sovereignty altering in every way.
That's interesting because that's where I was going next, actually, because
Mhm.
I think what we need to do now that we have this context is to move from what the bill says to what the bill does. Uh,
Mhm.
and we know that the Ugandan constitution is clear power belongs to the people. So, does this bill protect sovereignty or redefine who exercises it? Who exercises it?
What this bill does is that it rips sovereignty from the people
Mm.
and vests it exclusively in
Executive,
the Minister for the Internal Affairs,
who is appointed by the president.
yes, and the separate department in the Ministry of Internal Affairs called the Department of Peace and Security. Its functions are not known, except to say that it will be in charge of registration of foreign agents.
So,
And monitoring them.
are you suggesting that we are seeing a shift from popular sovereignty to state-controlled sovereignty?
Yes. Plus, of course, the aspect it says throughout that there are specific activities in which Ugandans have been free to participate. But if this bill passes in its current form, they will need cabinet level approval for those activities. And these are
When you say
these are
cabinet level approval, you mean one person is supposed to actually do all those approvals? Because all that power is vested in one.
so
A
this is what they're
minister.
saying, that
Yeah.
in fact they're saying that, and now some of these powers have been existing in different institutions, ministry departments, some organizations, some officers. But what the bill is saying that only cabinet, and cabinet means cabinet. Cabinet means the ministers sitting in cabinet advising the president is the one which will approve specific things. Like, for instance, if you should be allowed to bring in more than 400 million. Even the minister himself doesn't have that authority. He will have to ask cabinet. So if you look at the practical implications of cabinet sitting, how many meetings will cabinet have to sit to just conduct the business of approving, making approvals under this bill? I don't think cabinet will have any other time for any other business. Any time
Right.
for any other business, yeah. So
So
that really, and of course, it creates offenses. It uses a lot of criminalization
right.
for each and everything. For each prohibition, there's an offense, and the punishments are gross. They are demeaning. They are inhumane. You heard of fines of 2 billion, 20 billion,
Yeah. 20 years of
long
imprisonment.
20 years of imprisonment for offenses which don't involve threats to life, to health, to property, or just basically political offenses. That's what we call them. They are based on opinion and policy. Your offense would be that you challenge the government policy. You expressed an opinion on government policy. You did not register
Right.
before you expressed a particular view.
Dr. Stella suggests that I interrupted you while you're still sharing some information. I wonder if you still had something more to share before I interrupted you with more questions. But as you think about that, I'm also wondering if you think this is a legal evolution or a constitutional contradiction, and if so, how? In which way?
Well, Dr. Say is probably right. I was still building the idea that this is a constitutional coup. It may be something that people need to understand. Now, generally, when there is a coup d'etat,
Yeah.
we tend to think that it will be bloody.
Mm.
It will involve a state of emergency. We shall feed it in forms of lockdowns, roadblocks, announcements over TV, and stuff. Now, the thing is, coups of that kind have gotten out of vogue, because when you do coups like that, even at the African Union level, you attract a ban, exclusion.
Right.
from the African Union and similar, and from other international organs. So it's difficult to find recognition after you've done such a brazen coup. So what happens then is that for regimes that are despotic and wish to retain power this way against the pro-democracy forces that are
Are you still with us? I hope Isaac is not
a return
interrupting.
of democracy.
There you go.
Yeah.
We lost you momentarily there, but
Oh,
you're back. Yeah.
okay. So I was saying that so for the current regime, they have been thinking about how to maintain power through a coup d'etat without appearing, to follow the format I've told you about.
Right.
So what they have done over time is called mini coups. A mini coup is a localized context within which you topple specific units of power that belong to the people. The best example to use is courts and the judiciary. So over
Mm.
time, the government has hollowed out the judiciary to the extent that right now we have a mere shell of a judiciary. We have a chief justice that is not lawfully appointed, and he knows this. We have we don't even have a deputy chief justice, and nobody cares.
Right.
We have a principal judge that similarly was unlawfully appointed, and by this I mean that the organ that was supposed to process names of these judicial nominees, called the Judicial Service Commission, it came under attack by the regime through Attorney General Julio Wachiwanuka.
Mm.
Of course, even before he became Attorney General, as I wrote in my article in 2021, there were clear signs that they had created a rival process for processing names to be judges. And they had managed to get people into the Judicial Service Commission who receive these names and present them as though they were the results of their search. But actually, those
Mm.
were the results of a search conducted by Chiloba Chwanuka and his partner Edwin Kalujire and the NRM structures. So we don't have an independent Judicial Service Commission. We haven't had one for a long time. When we tried at the bar to recapture some units of autonomy for the Judicial Service Commission by saying, for instance, that the lawyers we send to represent the Law Society must be elected. They will
Right.
campaign
Yeah.
and be elected on their merit. You saw what happened. The judiciary plus the executive united to prevent that election, including having me exiled.
Right.
When appeals were brought up for us to resolve this question, the appeals were removed from the cause list last year, further prolonging my exile, but also
Yeah.
prolonging the limbo in which the judiciary and the legal law society find themselves, because we can't renew leadership in the Judicial Service Commission. Article 146 reserves 2 seats for members of the bar
Yeah.
to come in there and be the watchdogs, over judicial recruitment. Now that institution is proceeding without these members. That's now that's that's a dismembering
Yeah.
of constitutional order right there. You
Mm.
can This is replicated everywhere. So you can imagine all these judges know that the process through which they passed through was
It's flawed.
unconstitutional,
Yeah.
was flawed, yeah. And their allegiance is not to people of Uganda, it is to specific individuals who have or extracted from them specific concessions on how they shall rule in
Right.
specific cases. So this, of course, you can replicate across police. You can see that the police, I think you know about the militarization of the police.
Yeah.
So we have a
Yes.
Uganda police force, which is
Yeah.
entirely now under the command of the military establishment. The same goes with the civil service. Much of the civil service has been cannibalized by the military, by the intelligence, and so it's no longer following the basic principles of public service. You can come to parliament. There you know much better about how
Yeah.
parliament has decayed
Yes.
and is now in service of a regime that can it really stop. You can see the budgets they pass and what they prioritize. I mean, the gifting budget for the president has far superseded other essentials. For us to provide legal aid to the people of Uganda annually, 47 billion would be a good starting point. It was
Mm.
denied to us. The legal aid bill was withdrawn at the
Yeah.
request of the state, simply because apparently the state doesn't have 47 billion. But in the same week, supplementary budgets were passed for um bling, glamorous items for the members of parliament. So the priorities are no longer consistent with the democratic order. Now, what has happened then is that previously, and this is the most important thing about this law, that everything it proposes to do is already happening.
Right.
People like you, Henry Sally, if you turned up at an airport in Uganda, I'm sure if you ever come back to Uganda, you return with some anxiety that you might be picked up at the
I
airport.
know.
You get me? So the
Yeah.
profiling
The
of specific
surveillance is,
diaspora voices has already been happening.
yeah,
Now they just
absolutely.
want to formalize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm? Yes,
Systematically, yeah, formalize it.
the surveillance of people's financial transactions, even outside the structures of the Anti-Money Laundering Act, has already been happening. There is a case that is published called Sundus Forex Bureau versus Attorney General, in which somebody reported a group of Somali families as
Mm.
possibly engaged in suspicious transactions to do with anti-money laundering or terrorism financing. An investigation was done by the police, by the Financial Intelligence Authority, and it cleared this family. But
Mm.
the then DPP, who is now a judge of the Supreme Court, insisted on continuing to oppress this family by presenting a charge sheet, well knowing that the institutions which are in charge of investigation and giving him the material basis uh, for an offense have cleared these people. So where was the DPP going to find evidence? So the DPP then he called it prosecution-led investigation. So the DPP found investigators from within the
Mm.
police that would cooperate with him to
Yeah.
find anything to accuse this people with. Of course, that was oppression, that was persecution, and possibly a shakedown to to oppress this family until it gives up some of its money. So many Ugandans have been oppressed already by various agencies. They call themselves state house agency, this state
Yeah.
house agency on that, state house agency on that. And in the end, you lose money. You lose money with every contact with government. So this this has been going on for a long time. But I think to their credit, I guess, they feel that if if they've been able to get away with it, it can become a real job. And that's why you see these NRM lawyers are very interested in
Right.
uh, in this bill, because it's an extortion racket.
Mm.
It creates an extortion racket in which only those who are close to power will charge ordinary Ugandans a price.
to get their monies.
A
That's
price
interesting.
to get the monies to even enjoy liberty.
Of course, yeah. They're already
To have
doing
the
that.
state to have the state leave you alone. So they will be in charge of sending the state to oppress you and then calling it off. You
Mm.
know. So this is it. They have sat down. For me, I say this very clearly because I come from a background of traders, merchants in Chikuvu and stuff. I
Right.
know what they've been going through.
Mm.
They've been going through the things. They live scared of the government for exactly these sorts of things. They haven't been able, for instance, to make contributions to when we need contributions from Ugandans to do specific things. They limit their contributions to burial ceremonies,
Right.
sickness,
Yeah.
graduation parties, marriages, but other aspects of civic activity, no. The ordinary Ugandan mind is trained to think that that's unlawful, and this bill
Let's
is enforcing that. Mm.
mm.
It's enforcing
Let's
that.
talk.
So, for instance, if you ask for money to oppose this bill,
Yeah.
only people in the diaspora could have a sense of legality of such a campaign. But the local people would think, I can't. If I'm seen to contribute towards challenging government, then I'll also be tied up with BCJ and the new
Yeah.
people, and terrorized till I lose everything. So yeah.
Mm. Let's talk about what may be the most controversial element of this bill: definitions. The bill
Mm.
includes diaspora Ugandans as foreigners. What does that mean in practice? And could ordinary citizens unknowingly become agents of foreigners? Right? And I think this is important to interrogate because you actually became an item of conversation uh, in some of the presentations that were offered, as I'm going to share here.
To me this morning that if we maintain that a Ugandan resident abroad is a foreigner and cannot participate in politics, Uganda Law Society will be shut down. Isaac Chimaze Ssemakadde has been in exile for 1 year plus. He's abroad. He's running Uganda Law Society. He would be deemed a foreigner. And Uganda Law Society would be deemed agents of foreigners and would require to register with the Minister of Internal Affairs. I'm not going to bet as to whether we would be registered.
Mm.
So tell
Yes.
us, let us unpack what it really means. Can someone be a Ugandan and not a Ugandan at the same time? And what does that really means? And what does that mean to you as the president of the Uganda Law Society and the chief custodian of the Radical New Bar? Because uh, ever since you became president, we have been seeing a lot of progress in how folks at the Radical New Bar are behaving towards implementing justice or seeking for justice, right? If this bill is approved and assented to by the president, well, what does that mean to the Uganda Law Society and the Radical New Bar?
Well, the cardinal goal of the radical new bar was to expose, isolate, and combat charlatans amongst us. For a long time, the idea that we are one society, one friendly society, which keeps the peace by serving in power, it had misrepresented our role as lawyers. Public sector lawyers, lawyers serving in government, lawyers allied to government have done so much harm, and they come to the Uganda Law Society for image laundering. So this used to be so common. When we stood, we said this has got to end. People that do bad things using a law in the name of the law have to be exposed and isolated, so that the world is very clear that not all lawyers are in league with these violations. And we also had to be very clear that the capture of the sovereignty of Ugandans institutions had also reached the bar. So even the Uganda Law Society itself was under capture. It wasn't. It's not conceivable that the state can invest a lot in disorganizing, dismantling the NGOs ecosystem, political parties, civil society organizations, traders associations, and leave the Uganda society. No, it had also come for us, so we had to make that very clear, and that had significant implications. So, for me, I want to encourage you, Mr. Sali, to encourage and your listeners and viewers to go back to an article I wrote in 2021. Ejji Chijobachwanuka is the wrong man for the wrong job. It was published in the Observer in the month he got sworn in as Attorney General. I thought it was very important to sound a warning to the world what this meant. The president appointing his personal private lawyer, the Attorney General of the Republic, after that person has done errands on the president's behalf, such as, I think he was a legal services director in the NRM. And I remember meeting him at Makerere University. And there he had come, of course, to interfere with the independence and autonomy of the country's leading institution of higher learning to select and enforce a policy of which scholars would retain tenure at the university.
Yeah.
And he Stella was there, he remembers. So these events were not accidental. You notice that, and of course now you've seen him very much involved in things they call birthday parties from Hosi.
Yeah.
And in the last election, he tried to build himself some form of political clout in Uganda, running around with Mr. Kasolo. With their program, is it Uganda from 7 or something? But the overall goal here is to use the respectability of law officers like the Office of Attorney General to do harm, to conduct harm, as they have already done when Ugandans don't know. I'm very impressed for the first time that Ugandans have awoken to the harm lawyers can do and rejected this nonsense. The Attorney General has, for instance, spoken and written. He has written. He has shown his thinking. I think in the new vision,
Right.
and he tried to give a justification for this bill and stuff. You know, two things about it: he doesn't even cite law. He doesn't cite consistency with the Uganda law. He just simply says, among other things, that other states have these shiny instruments of surveillance and repression. We should also have them. That's the meaning of sovereignty. And I think there was a video which was moving around at some sort of drinking joint where apparently he told people that once you have finished voting, you retain no other sovereignty. It all vests in the government of that day.
Interesting. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and that's how reckless and ridiculous he is. And people, for me, I had to warn first of all fellow lawyers that you're responsible for creating such monsters. This is an
Right.
unelected and unelectable monster. So he has no unit of sovereignty in him. But for the appointment, no one would know him. He wouldn't be in this position.
Right.
You know, he has no record of public service. He has just been a hitman for a regime. Well, what do you expect he was going to do when he got to this office? I argued in the article that they had worked out and realized that he's the best fool, he's the best idiot to risk doing a coup that will benefit Mohoz. And that's his mission. He thinks that we shall be able to use the law to ease Mohoz into power without going through the constitutional structures. And so they've written this law which allows them to arrest anyone on mere suspicion. Anywhere. And you don't even have to be in Uganda. They just put you in a list, a blacklist. The sort of fantastic ideas these people have about the contempt they have for people's sovereignty is immense. But for the first time, we are glad that they have put it in writing. Now we have been vindicated. Those who have been calling them Avechitiwa, honorable, they can continue. But for us, we've been vindicated. We called them charlatans, and they have shown themselves as charlatans through this bill. I hope I answered the question properly.
You did, but there are speculations that you were one of the reasons that this bill was brought forward, and I'm wondering if you are thinking the same thing. Are you one of the personalities that led or the motivations of this bill? And if so, what do we do as a people, as Ugandans, and what do you intend to do from here? Before we delve into the power that is invested in the minister and how that is going to operate in practice.
Well, I don't think so. I don't think it was largely about me. I could think of everybody who understood the digital moment when it arose, especially the period between 2014 to 2024. By the election of 2016, the state was very worried. In fact, that's when the language of foreign interference
started
was
emanating.
normalized.
Yeah.
Yes. It resulted in the blockade on Facebook.
Yes. Yeah.
So the state got very interested. Of course, it was encouraged in this thought by events in America where there was talk of Russian interference
Right.
in the election
Election
that
of
brought, yes. So
President
they
Trump
felt,
and Hillary Clinton.
yeah, so they felt that they were also legitimate in making a complaint that big tech had a role to play in destabilizing Uganda, or I can't call it destabilizing, but tweaking, I guess. I think I remember the press release they put out, and I remember the arguments people like Don Wanyama made then that Facebook was able to identify a bunch of NRM leaning influencer accounts and block them and leave the others. This is what they told the president, and since then he hasn't been able to bring back Facebook. So
Yeah, but I think
then
they were also scared of the revolution that happened in Sudan. As a result, so in Sudan and also in Tunisia, I believe, that led to the fall of those governments. So they had to figure out a way to manage the influence of social media on how they govern and how it challenges their power
mm,
as dictators, I guess.
mm, mm. So that's the broad canvas um, a- a- against which this law is written. Of course, I was involved in the Stella Nyanzi moment,
Right.
which enabled us to test the limits, the sincerity of government's commitment to these tools. I think called the Computer Misuse Act. So when we showed that government can't win any case under the Computer Misuse Act, if there's a good lawyer and there is a courageous user who insists on their rights, they can get forced confessions and from others. But a person like Seranyans who was saying, I won't even leave jail. I just want Museveni in the dock to come and show me
Yeah.
how he's vulnerable through my writing. How do I, why am I called a bad actor?
Yeah.
So that case had a number of results which they studied. The next thing you notice is that they sponsored through Nsereko a private member's bill to return a number of outlawed offenses like sedition. I don't know if you know what sedition is.
Why don't you tell us about
Yeah,
sedition?
so sedition in Uganda is called okurebula. To
Right.
insult and annoy leaders is called sedition.
Mm.
Sedition is an old colonial offense which the British carried to the colonies to protect themselves against local resistance. So
Right.
if you acted in a way that sort of brought down their esteem, put their leaders in bad light,
Mm.
whether they are colonial officers or appointees of colonial administration, they will throw you in for this offense called sedition. In a
Right.
sense, it was an offense to ensure absolute fidelity to colonial order. there should be no opposition, not even the thought.
Whatsoever. Yeah.
So now it remained on our law books for some time until it was challenged in 2005 by Andrew Mwenda after after the death of Garang, General Garang. Andrew Mwenda had gone on to his TV show, among other things, to reply to the president's statements in Kololo about calling him some form of charlatan, on
Right. Yeah.
security and stuff. And Mwenda said, "I'm not the charlatan here. You are the charlatan. You're just a villager. You are stupid. You know nothing about regional security." There's a number of insults that Mwenda used, and they are quoted in that judgment. So they threw him in for sedition.
Right.
And apparently sectarianism.
Yeah.
So but the Constitutional Court agreed that the offense of sedition, as it was then known under Section 39 and 40 of the Penal Code Act, had no continuing legitimacy in a constitutional democracy. Leaders could not insist on not being insulted or annoyed or disturbed or shocked or offended by the raid. They are leaders of a democratic nation. They are not they are not church leaders. They're not leading a private organization. So public life was described as a hotbed of varying ranges of criticism, including what they call caustic, scorching criticism.
Right.
You have to bear a thick skin to be
Yeah.
in public life. If you can't, you must go. Now, since that decision, the government has tried to write laws that bring back sedition in various forms, calling it different things. That
Of
was
course, the
we saw
Computer Misuse Act was thrown
we
out
saw that in the
recently by the Supreme
Computer
Court.
Misuse Amendment Act. Yes, defamation. They like to come to defamation, which was also thrown out last
Yeah.
month. Now even this is being returned through the bill by saying you will not oppose government policy. You will not, critique government policy. That's still sedition. So, yeah,
So,
please go ahead.
why don't we talk about the power invested in a minister? Because I think these folks are hell bent on getting this thing approved through Parliament and then assented to by the president before perhaps the next term begins. So much of the authority sits in the Minister of Internal Affairs. How significant is this concentration of power? And what risks come with the office controlling registration, funding, and enforcement?
A
Do we
lot
know if
of
there are meaningful checks and balances?
you must understand that a minister has no authority in Museveni's government.
Yeah.
So, in practical terms, Mulowinza awadde Salim Saleh. And the people around him. So the minister will just be a figurehead, writing 2 letters and making some statements. But executive power, we know how executive power is designed in Uganda. And so we call them cliques and cabals. There are cliques and cabals around Salim Saleh that are only too eager to exercise this authority. It is too much authority. It is too much authority.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that people have discussed how extensive it is. It involves ordering a search an invasion of your home office, tools, computers, without even a search warrant, on the mere suspicion that you have opinions opposed to those our leaders have. That's it. That's the typical political offense. An offense that, has political motivation on the part of either the accused or the accuser. So it then has this notion of yes, he has this Department of Peace and Security whose membership is unknown. So now the fact that the membership of the Department of Peace and Security is unknown, the structure is unknown, that means it will be whatever they want to do. There's no check and balance for the people.
Right.
That's what that implies, is that it can be fully staffed by the military intelligence. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to be fully staffed by military intelligence, and therefore it's going to be a back door. And this is what I call this is what we call a coup. It's going to be a back door through which the military topples civilian power. Are you getting me?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a back door through which army boots are going to turn up at your door. Now the military didn't have authority to do this. Like I said, if the military did this, you would all brazenly see that it's wrong. But now if it comes through this law, you will say, well, they have that power. You won't see it as a coup.
So how do we manage this kind of gatekeeping, and how do we push back on these kinds of assertions that have been inserted into this bill? Specifically, how do we manage the military takeover of people's sovereignty?
Well, the first aspect, I don't know that has been done well. First of all, these people, the first aspect is awareness. Now, this bill was deliberately withheld from Ugandans during the most intense hour for awareness, which is the national election.
Yeah.
If this bill was a good law, there's no reason why it shouldn't have been part of the campaign
I know.
for the government. When you vote us, this is what we shall bring. So for me, I feel very, very grateful that during my term as president of the Uganda Law Society, we were able to understand that what the government is going to do after elections is anti-democratic. And we warned you that any vote from Museveni, you will be responsible.
They
But
could
there is
argue
no way.
that they mentioned it in their suggestions of protecting the gains.
Well, the thing is that the bill should have been discussed during elections. Clearly,
That's true.
they are bringing it at the tail end when Parliament is closing. They intend to pass it next week, before swearing in the next week. So, this bill is gazetted 13th, laid on the table, Parliament on 15th, first reading, an advert for calling for public participation on 16th of April. Comments are closed on 24th. There's only a limited number of people that are going to be given a chance to influence the bill at committee stage.
Yeah.
But given the wide-ranging impacts of the bill on people's lives, one would have anticipated that there would be sufficient time to translate the bill into a number of laws and conduct these road shows by parliament, by government, Even as civil society, we
Even
could do
civil
this.
society. Yeah.
Yeah, but we've been denied the time to do this because it's being rammed through at breakneck speed. So those are the hallmarks of desperation and despotism. So I don't see government making any serious concessions
Mm.
because the entire premise of the law is erroneous. That you need one law, one big law to protect sovereignty. No, the sovereignty of Ugandans is protected in
The
piecemeal
constitution.
bills. Yeah, first it's in the constitution, yes,
Mm.
and to guarantee these constitutional outcomes, you need specific laws to 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 build the resilience of Ugandans and Ugandan institutions, and you don't have to do that through prohibitions of civic rights,
Expressions
because
of
civic rights are the guarantors of sovereignty. Okay,
absolutely. Yeah.
you can't put a boot on our neck and say you're protecting sovereignty.
Mm.
You can't lock us into our homes. You can't cut us off from international finance, international online platforms, and say you're protecting our sovereignty. There's a word for that in law. It's called paternalism.
Mm.
Paternalism, it comes from paternal, father
Yeah.
like.
Further, like,
So yeah, these godfather laws are unconstitutional because they are bent, they are premised on the illogical notion that the people are children who need the state as a constant father,
mm.
protecting them against these dangers. You know, the thing about a constitutional democracy is that you can't stop me from dying if I want to die. You know, if I want to smoke, if I want
Right.
to drink, if I'm an adult, I'll drink. I will do. I'll live a reckless life and die. The most you can do as government is you can warn people against such behavior.
Yeah.
But to now start to arrest them uh, and say this is in your interest so that you don't drink. Hmm? And I think there were COVID laws were passed
Yeah.
during COVID. Many
Yeah.
many countries used paternalism to pass laws, but you remember that all those laws ultimately were quashed, where the court said
Eventually.
that
Yeah.
yeah, if people want to die
Yeah.
from the COVID, let them die. You know, there's nothing you can stop them. Stop. These
Imposing. Yeah.
lockdowns.
Yeah.
The lockdowns were challenged. The lockdown
They were
regulations.
challenged. In Texas, they
Yes.
didn't even work. Like in Texas, people were
Yes.
like just moving around, going to parties as usual. But I think actually the COVID-19 pandemic might have helped the Museveni government entrench their power uh, because Ugandans seem to have been compliant, too compliant that there was no fear anymore about what government can do. And
Yes.
because of that reach that we allowed to happen, now they see that it's so much easier to continue pushing for more and getting as much
Yes.
control over people's sovereignty as they
Yes.
could, because Ugandans are just so quiet. Hopefully, these conversations are opening up their eyes and encouraging them to be more deliberate in challenging and pushing back some of these suggestions that are being brought to the Legislative Assembly for approval. But I wanted to ask you something about definitions before we head into something else. Specifically, I want to know your thoughts about what Council Segona says regarding the wording of the bill, which says including instead of saying means, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so What are your thoughts about that, especially the wording? Because Council Segona says that, that could mean that they could keep on compiling more and more, adding more and more forks in the definitions because of the word including instead of need. What's the importance of words in writing legislation? Clarity. I
You
think I,
know,
I want us
I'll
to
go back
understand clarity.
to I'll go back to the first thing I told you that the problem with AI tools is that AI doesn't have ethics.
Mm,
It's up to the user of the AI tools to insist on unethical framework and to teach the tool and to guide it
mm,
towards ethical outcomes. But the machine will provide you the most unethical outcomes if those are the ones you want. And this is what we see about this bill. That's how you see the sweeping language, the
mm.
all-encompassing, the repression, all-encompassing repression. They leave no one outside
Yeah.
the sweep and catch of the law. I think it's called catch all. Catch all.
Catch all. Yeah.
These are called catch all.
Mm,
These are called catch all phrases, catch all provisions. So somebody would have asked the machine to provide catch all,
yeah.
to draft. These were the instructions the machine was given, and it released them. And the people who were in charge of, who are responsible for the results, were not interested in 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 revising these outcomes alongside ethical obligations, consistency with our constitution and our laws. No, they're not interested in that because it goes against their stated project. Their stated project is to overturn constitutional order,
Mm,
because they feel that they have sufficient support within constitutional organs like the judiciary to get these instruments legitimized, to be dressed as lawful. They feel
right.
that they have sufficient numbers in parliament to dress these things as lawful. So that's what happened here. And without picking any particular definitions, I think the most popular resistance has been to the definition of a foreigner, as including a Ugandan who has left the country,
Yeah.
and all the implications that has for the associates of that Ugandan, because then they become agents of that foreigner.
Agents of that foreigner. Yeah.
Because even the
Absolutely.
definition of agents of a foreigner
Mm,
is too broad. Let me just read it for you. Is it self too broad? Agent of a foreigner is the first definition. Means a person who acts as an agent, representative, employee or servant, or any person who acts in any other capacity
so broad.
at the order, at the request, or under the direction or control of a foreigner or of a person, any of whose activities are directly or indirectly supervised, directed, controlled, financed, or subsidized by foreigners. So this is a catch-all phrase.
Yeah.
It goes even beyond the foreigner, adds or of another person, and so on and so forth. But like I said, what we see from this is a lack of ethics, because there should be ethics to legislative drafting.
Mm,
There should be ethics of the job. This is a job of drafting legislation. Legislation has been drafted for donkey years. So a certain ethics has arisen. These laws, not even the Nazis had these laws. Even the
Yeah.
Nazis had some ethical considerations to that. They couldn't stoop to this extent. But here we are. And now we are going to see this general lack of ethics play out. You will see it, for instance, in the policing.
Yeah.
Because now, if the police have to implement this law, what are the ethical checks
I
from
know.
them?
Yeah. Of
None.
course. None.
There are none. I have argued before, and I probably put it on record here, that this law is going to then to topple, to bring so much harm to families,
Mm.
because the government can't know everything.
Yeah. Actually, I want you to delve deeper into that. What
So
that
what's going to
really
happen
means.
is that the government has created a device through which our human relationships can in a split second turn from harmonious to conflict,
Mm.
because even me here, I can report you, or anyone watching here, this activity
Yeah.
is at the request of a foreigner. So anyone can now turn us into criminals, and the
Right.
police will take this very serious. They will abandon other crime and pursue this issue, because I think they are called perverse incentives. They are perverse incentives. They are incentivized. The government policy may be, we want so many arrests, we want so many convictions on this law. And if you
Mm.
are a public servant who wants to bring food to the
The table.
table
Yeah.
of your family, you're also going to say, why should I have ethics?
Mm.
So let me just deliver. And we see this. We've seen it, for instance, you've seen the kind of charge sheets that the magistrates allow,
Right.
from the DPP brings, charge sheets that
Yeah.
are on the face of it unconstitutional, ridiculous, but everybody pretends that it's a serious offense here, bail is denied, and so on and so forth. So there's going to be a huge danger that people's human relations are going to suffer a lot, because bad actors are going to use the law to to
Mm.
to to say they have reported you. Report oyo otujja musobola genda mu reporting under Protection of Sovereignty Act. You,
Yeah.
you get me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So enemies, um they will just use this thing. So they didn't have it before.
No, they
So
do.
now they do.
Potentially, if we don't continue pushing back, I think we should continue pushing back and see how things unfold. Uh,
Well, you asked
but
about pushing back. Let me
yeah.
conclude something. There are
Mm.
two things. One, as the Law Society, we have identified that such a law would require a referendum.
That's what I was going to ask you next.
It
Yeah.
would require a referendum.
Mm.
And the referendum has the necessary, components of public participation, so that every Ugandan understands that the government is absolutely changing the rules of the game, the rules of life, the rules of law as you knew it.
Mm.
Are you okay with this? It's in the law
Yeah.
that any provision, any bill, any any suggested alteration of sovereignty and supremacy of the constitution must be blessed by the people
But the people must be
through a
approved by the
referendum.
people.
So this in the bill, you don't see that backstop being incorporated there. That, by the way, this bill won't come into force until or unless it has been approved by a referendum. There's supposed to be a specific clause acknowledging that this bill alters sovereignty of the people, it alters supremacy of the constitution for the reasons that the government says are necessary. And the government, being a government that obeys the rule of law, is aware of its obligation to place it before the people for a vote, yes or no. So now we don't see that. So that's the first aspect. The other thing, of course, is the nearly every clause in the bill is inconsistent with the Constitution. There are few clauses that are not inconsistent with the Constitution because they merely repeat, regurgitate what the Constitution
What is
says
already, what is already
in the
available.
Constitution, yes.
Yeah.
But after doing that, they then accompany those provisions with phrases, statements that move away, alter, whittle, water down constitutional protections, especially in Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights. So that means that the entire bill has to be frozen. It has to be frozen. It has to be frozen by a court order. What government?
How do we do that? Yeah.
One, Parliament could impose a period within which commencement Parliament could put a 1 year period, because people can't wake up, people can't be stampeded to comply with this bill. So if government sincerely wants compliance with this bill, it has to offer the time range, for instance, for registration. You follow?
Yeah.
So you have to give us like 2 years to register. If we couldn't even get IDs right in 1 month, how shall we get this right? You get it?
Meanwhile, families have to feed, folks have to go back to school, projects have to be
So the
constructed.
government, if it is sincere about the measures it has chosen for itself here called registration can't be an overnight activity. So there has to be a window
within which you must register.
Yes. So the government must put another clause, and during that time, it can then be tested for its legality in the courts without panicking everybody else.
Yeah.
You're most interested in the court. In the court, I'm familiar. I think for us, we are not bothered from the legal perspective. We're not bothered because it's going to be an easy bill to challenge. The concerns that we have stem from the volume of the bill. These are over 30 clauses.
Yeah.
That's a lot of labor. Two, where are we going to challenge it?
That's another question. Yes.
The ecosystem for our judiciary ecosystem has been hollowed out. It's a shell.
Yeah.
Itself.
Well, I was wondering if we could pursue some of the justice from the East African community or the African community overall. Because I'm wondering how this bill is going to be perceived or evaluated by the African fraternity, and what it does to Mr. Museveni's Pan-Africanism that he's always talking about. Is it in line? Does it align with those values? And if not, uh, how do we bring this? How do we bring clarity to these conversations so that he understands that what they are pursuing now is not in the best does not align with the values of Pan-Africanism. Because disempowering Africans, I don't think disempowering Africans is in line with the values of Pan-Africanism.
Well, you raise a significant point. We call it pooled sovereignty. Pooled sovereignty is a principle that whenever Uganda steps out these boundaries and joins the international community and signs treaties, it creates other units of sovereignty, like the East African community. So the East African community is also a residual sovereignty power in which Kenya has contributed something, Tanzania has contributed something, Uganda has contributed something. We've all pulled our sovereignty into this organ, this new system of governance. And you can't walk back unless you follow the process for departure. So we have pooled sovereignty at the regional level, the Treaty for Establishment of the East African Community. We have pooled sovereignty at the African level, the AU. We have pooled sovereignty at international level, the UN, the United Nations, and the various organs it has.
Yeah.
We have pooled sovereignty, like you said, within various forums. There is something like, what was that process we agreed in Rwanda, the Africa Free Trade, Agenda 263,
Yeah. Yes.
2063.
2063. Yes.
Yes, and how does this square with that? Well, like I said, at this point, I don't think that Museveni or his people are thinking logically or ethically, or are interested in those arguments. For the president, it has always been his goal to entrench himself in the office of president and to return to an imperial presidency.
Right.
That means to unburden himself, to unshackle himself from the precepts of democracy and the constitution, while retaining the illusion that he has been democratically elected and is implementing, enforcing, and defending the constitution, as stated in Article 98 and 99. That sort of contradictory scenario, it has been in Museveni's politics. He has never desired to step aside and participate in politics the way we all do as a citizen. I think some people say that he's not a citizen. That's why he's afraid of playing politics as a citizen. Because the rest of us, we exercise our sovereignty through the duties of a citizen under Article 17
Right. Yeah.
and national objective. But maybe he doesn't feel that that's the sufficient basis for power for him to for engagement. So he just resides in this office of president, and now he needs 40 years in, he has found people around him that can't even dare to tell him the truth that these instruments, these proposals are. I think they've had him explain what his program is, and they said, we will do it. We'll do it, just it will be shabby, but it will get done. And there's so much for them to win. There's so much fame, so much fortune. These are fortune hunters. How much consequences can we bring to them? I think that's the question now. Because what they have done, if this bill passes, whoever will have participated in passing this bill would have committed an act of treason. Now, this is something that is in the Constitution.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
It's in Article 3 of the Constitution. Any person acting singly or in concert with others who participates in seeking to overthrow the established constitutional order
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
commits the act of treason. And when the established constitutional order is restored, the people will deal with that person the same way they would deal with any other act of treason. So you don't have to pick arms. You don't have to use violence. But you can even use numbers, parliamentary numbers. You can even use the bribery of judges. You can even be a judge. And you write a judgment that does not reflect fidelity to the Constitution. We shall deal with you. So for me, I'm inspired that they're out of track. They're out of thinking. They are now doing brazen acts of criminality, and they're calling this governance. Is there room for challenging these people?
Yeah.
Using social tools, social justice demonstrations and stuff, when no one knows, I think they're counting on the idea that they have brutalized and tormented and tortured the Ugandan population into despotes.
Yeah.
And so they don't think that it's capable of rising up against them, especially since they have isolated and picked up, Besigye, Bobby Wine, Stellanians, they have run us into exile. So they think that there's no one with the agency to mobilize a popular resistance. That's why Mwanga Chivumbi is in jail, by the way. The president has never forgotten what Mwanga Chivumbi did many, many years ago. Mwanga Chivumbi has ever led a national action to resist. I think it was called to resist. It was called to resist third term or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Well,
so getting him knocked out before they bring this bill was very important because he has that pedigree. I think it was called Popular Resistance Against Life Presidency. That was the initiative Mwanga Chivumbi ran in early 2000s. So it may be out of public memory for now, but those in power haven't forgotten.
Still remember,
You follow? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I'm not one for predicting and betting against citizens. We've seen these actions sprout out on their own. So the state may want to control every aspect of human life, suppress all forms of agitation, whether in schools, in churches, in workplaces. But there will be incidents that
People speak
that
out and come to fight for themselves.
that inspire popular resistance.
Yeah. We have about 10 minutes to complete this discussion. Of course, we shall have more of these as we continue to challenge and educate the populations. But I want to engage you with some of the comments from the people. Namata is one of the, I think she's a law scholar as well, Makerere University. That's what she has to say. I wonder if you have any suggestions. Do you see the comments or no?
Oh yes, to a layman, what are the major constitutional guardrails that this bill has ignored? And should we be hopeful that once passed, the courts will throw it out like the... Yes, the major constitutional guardrails that this bill has ignored are largely, number one, Article 260 of the Constitution, which reads as follows. I think I can get a copy of it. Do you have a Constitution with you, Mr. Sadi?
I can find it. Which one do you want?
Article 260. It's called the 18th schedule amendment of the Constitution. So it says 261, a bill for an act of parliament seeking to amend any of the provisions in clause 2 shall not be taken as passed unless it is supported at the second and third readings by not less than 2/3 of all members of parliament, and it has been referred to a decision of the people and approved by them in a referendum. The provisions referred to include Chapter 1, Articles 1 and 2. So now, what is to amend the Constitution? That is defined in Article 259. Parliament may amend by way of addition, variation, or repeal any provision of the Constitution. So any bill that manifestly adds to, varies, or repeals a provision of the Constitution is a bill for the amendment of the Constitution. And it is required in Article 259, sub-article 2, to state its purpose exclusively, that this is a bill for the amendment of the Constitution. And it complies with this chapter 18. Now, what happens is that Parliament may disguise an amendment bill as it's doing. In this case, this is a disguised bill, constitutional amendment bill, by naming it other things. And
Are we losing you? You still with us?
I got some interference.
Oh, okay.
Am I back?
Okay. You're back, yes.
Yeah. So this is this is by all means, by all definitions, a bill for the amendment of the Constitution. You have seen an amendment means any variation of the established constitutional order. So it's varying citizenship, as you have seen. It's varying, Article 29 rights, speech, association.
Yeah.
It's protest. It's varying Article 38 rights to participate in governance. Civilians, citizens. It's varying the duties of a citizen in Article 17. in National Objective 29. So it varies the constitution, and it should be said clearly that the government wishes to protect sovereignty by amending the constitution. Now they haven't done that. That's the most important guardrail.
Yeah.
The second one is chapter 4 itself. Because the bill, there are many ways to protect sovereignty. One way would be positive. You bring positive laws that have positive schemes, like subsidies. You
Yeah.
understand, Henry?
Yeah.
Like a subsidy. Like the following people shall benefit from a subsidy, a bailout. The government could have brought bailout laws, subsidy. We wouldn't be I wouldn't be concerned.
We also
Because
have the
that's
Financial Intelligence Act, which does a lot of stuff.
yeah. The,
Protect.
the Financial Intelligence Authority is a creature of the Anti-Money Laundering Act. So
Yeah.
if the government had used the positive laws, positive provisions, grant, like for instance, Namata said she's a law student.
Yes.
Yeah. So if the government has a program called State House scholarships, but they are not legislated in law. So we don't know how to apply and get them and how to complain when we haven't gotten them. But the goal of those scholarships, I think, is again sovereignty, to ensure that the presidency or government finds a way of aiding the needy to access, so that they can contribute to the pool of knowledge and so on and so forth. That's a way of protecting sovereignty. Now, if government passed such a law, it would be hard for us to be in opposition against it. But here, they're using negative. They are taking away existing rights. They're not adding on to them positive things. We should actually have lesser freedom the day the bill is passed. So chapter 4 is the best check for that. And we've had a lot of judgments that have clarified chapter 4 guardrails.
Yeah.
Even the judgment that came from the Constitutional Court last month, it reiterated what was said in the Kawazigruka case in January last year, 31st January, that the the UN Human Rights Committee, which is the body of experts established by the General Assembly to guide state parties in interpreting and applying provisions of the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights, when it produces reference documents like the General Comment number 34 on freedom of expression, number 24 or 25 thereabout on civic participation, number 32, I think, on right to fair hearing, and others. When it produces these general comments, state parties are supposed to take them as highly instructive. They're not supposed to ignore them. That's what was said in Kawaziguruka. It was being reiterated in the case of alternative digital and other activists,
Yeah.
including the Uganda Law Society, versus the Attorney General, consolidated constitutional petitions number 34, 37, and 42. In that case, the court actually added emphasis to something called the African Commission for Human and People's Rights, which is also another body of experts, this time established under the African Charter for
Right.
Human and People's Rights.
Yeah.
Its duty is the same, literally the same as that of the Human Rights Committee. It provides guidance to state parties on the interpretation and application of Banjul Charter, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And when it has written its interpretative guidance documents, they're usually called principles. Principles. In that particular case, it was principles on freedom of expression and access to information in Africa. The court held that they are those principles where they exist, they are binding. There is no compromise. The state must follow them, and that's the basis on which we have confidence that the court should easily deal with this dustbin this bill. The another source of soft law around this matter is called the reports of the special rapporteur. There's a special rapporteur. Special rapporteur is another office. It's a UN mechanism.
Right.
There's a Kenyan lawyer called Maina Kiai. He was a special rapporteur on the right to freedom of association and peaceful assembly. Between the years 2013 and 2015, he studied extensively two aspects of that are essential for us here. The first one is regulation of foreign funding to civil society. The other aspect is foreign agent registration laws across the world. He studied them extensively and produced these reports showing that any countries that wrote laws which are despotic in character were acting contrary to the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights. And his reports, of course, are evidence-based. They are well-argued. They are very convincing. The current rapporteur, I think is called Claude, is also on this issue, and he has some reports on them. In fact, some of these people's reports show that the government is saying, "Oh, America has FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act.
Right.
Singapore has FICA, Foreign Interference Countermeasures Act. UK has one. Australia has one. Canada has one." Well, even for these countries, the special rapporteurs have said that those laws don't pass the test of compliance with the UN mechanisms, UN, treaty mechanisms. Yeah. So, yet in Uganda, these people are saying, well, we're only making these laws because others have them. But even where those laws exist, they have been criticized. But in fact, those laws, when you look at them, the reason why they are allowed legitimacy in those countries is that they are narrowly tailored to specific events and individuals who understand what is to be done clearly. They're not catch-all phrases that they're not full of vague provisions that make it impossible for you to understand what's prohibited and what isn't prohibited. They're easy to follow, and that's why they are tolerated in those countries. But I have heard it said by some of these people that, oh, our law looks exactly like that of Russia, Nicaragua, and everything. These are the same arguments I think Mr. Nsedeko was making against the Computer Misuse Act. Of the countries he chose to base his bill on were, Middle East countries, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Bahrain. Those are the countries he was mentioning. And we're like, for God's sake, those countries, their fidelity, their commitment to constitutional values, we don't share.
No, we don't.
Any common values with them. So, if our judges are sincere in being protectors of the Constitution, they should be able to guide the courts, to guide the nation promptly and justly. Yeah.
Well, we thank you so much for joining us here today. Of course, I'm going to give you an opportunity to give us a close-up and suggest how people can engage, continue to engage and perhaps advise on how best we can try to keep both the legislators but also the authors of this bill accountable. In closing,
That's a very good point. We are worried about the scourge of political prisoners that this bill will create. That's what keeps us awake at the Law Society. Um, a political prisoner is a victim of political persecution. What is
yeah,
political persecution? This is the deliberate weaponization of state power to crush dissent, to silence, ideas, and to punish the mere act of imagining a Uganda beyond, Museveni's junta. So, political offenses have been defined by UN, Amnesty International, as being an offense colored by political motive, either
mm,
the the prisoner's conduct or the state's response. The the Council of Europe has guidelines on this. It says where a law that threatens you with detention based on a violation of fundamental guarantees. In other words, you are in jail
mm,
merely for exercising any of the five freedoms under Article 29: freedom of expression or speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of peace, protest, thought, religious freedom, um, all for a purely political reason. If you find yourself in detention, then for those reasons you're a political prisoner. The UN Human Rights Committee has also defined, this issue. The African Commission also has definitions on political prisoner. Our constitution itself, in Article 43, Sabbatical 2A,
yeah,
outlaws political persecution. But this problem has gotten out of hand because we have a captured office of the DPP. It's the one which sanctions these charges and puts them in the system, and the judges have completely forgotten their duty to throw out, to reject these charge sheets. They play along instead of saying no. This charge sheet represents political persecution as defined by UN, as defined by the African Commission, as defined by the Council of Europe, as defined by Amnesty International, as defined by our own constitution. So we're going to reject it. This person should go home. So no, what we have is this scourge, and so we have this bill that presents so many opportunities for the state to increase the number of political prisoners. That worries us intensely, and we asking our colleagues, especially the diaspora, to do two
yeah,
things. One, we're going to give you an account number as the Law Society,
yeah.
in which you can put some money. We're looking for about 600K dollars, about 2.3 billion shillings, for us to do the necessary activities
Is this
around
for the
legal
Uganda Law
education.
Society?
Yes, around legal
Uh,
education
yeah,
and and these big battles against the bill itself, and also to respond, to conduct
mm,
what we call trial watch, because it
right,
appears that the state has already specific individuals in mind. Once it passes the bill, it may pounce. And what happens is that in our countries, when you are someone, when they come to Henry, we tend to think that Henry has a problem with the government, so we leave Henry to solve his problem with the government alone. Yet the government is using our name, our
yeah,
authority, our power
mm, mm,
to inconvenience Henry and his family. And so we
right,
don't tend to intervene. So we have resolved that we shall intervene in these battles. Whether Henry has
What's
lawyers
what's
or
the
not,
account number so that I can put it on here? So for
I
people
think
to-
it will be launched tomorrow.
Oh, it's going to be launched tomorrow.
It's
Okay.
going to be launched tomorrow,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure, we shall definitely continue engaging in this
Yes.
conversation.
But it's important. It's important that through this bill, we have learned that the government is moving ahead of us as people, and it is trying to. The government has identified money, the purpose to which we put money as
Yeah.
citizens. So, whereas up to now, we haven't collectivized our revenues for social struggle. We have collectivized our revenues maybe towards supporting political activity
Right.
and so on. But how about the legal resistance,
Which is very important. Well, the thing
which is
is,
very important?
that aspect has actually just come in during your presidency. Before,
Yes.
like, we didn't hear anything coming out of Uganda Law Society. They seem to have been so much aligned with what the government says, and of course,
In fact,
this brought
they were
you.
seeking government. They were seeking government patronage. The
Yes,
society
which I've
had been
seen that you
had
have
been dragged.
dismissed. Yeah.
Yes, the society had been dragged into the usual Ugandan misbehavior of seeking
Mm.
state patronage, which we had to cut off and say, no, we are a people's institution. We shall seek. We're not funded by the state. We have never been funded by the state. We are funded largely by members' subscriptions, plus well wishers, who know that we must be an independent bank.
Right.
So we're gonna come to the citizens locally and abroad and ask them, this is your account. This money is going to do the following things. It's the minimum number we could think of, and we'll see how that goes. Um, the other thing we're gonna have to do also is to retain focus on political prisoners. Anyway, I think this bill, all
Yeah.
said and done, it's a decoy. It's a massive it's massive simulation. It's a massive distraction.
Right.
They from the evil the government did in the last election. So before swearing in, the government needs some form of legitimacy. And it has actually gotten it because people have actually submitted their responses to
Well,
parliament. So
to
we
be
look
fair,
like
to be fair, we are still dealing with the previous government. We are still dealing with not the new government, right?
yeah.
Uh,
I'm
so
the same government.
submitting, I think submitting comments is in line to the government that is supposed to have been.
Yes, it has helped government cover up
Yeah.
its all its illegitimate activities. So we are caught in this catch-22.
Right.
If we boycott participation in the narrow window they have given us, only one window, comments before the joint committee.
Mm.
In fact, it's credit to people like you and others who have held these spaces to expand their conversation. But others, government has given us only one window. And so that window has been, from what I guess, figure, it has been overflooded. So government can then argue that it is democratic. It offered
Participation.
sufficient opportunity for participation, and it's going to process the bill in the usual democratic fashion. And so the bill that comes out will be a product of what Ugandans have decided for themselves.
Oh my goodness. So if there's no change in the bill, then we are caught up, as you said,
Yes.
we are caught up in a catch-22, right? Even if they don't change
Yes.
anything, the participation
Yes.
has been visible, and they can argue that no, people actually did engage in the
Yes.
conversation.
So in terms of broader politics, the things to demand from this government in its closing stage have changed. Instead
Right.
of demanding that you must release political prisoners before May 12th, we are now demanding that you must abandon this bill. Do you see the sleight of hand? So political
Yeah.
prisoners have been relegated,
Sidelined.
deprioritized,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
keeping them uh, in the public mind. It's going to be very hard, very difficult. Number two, we now realize that we have not been very effective in making the case for political prisoners, because where have all these institutions been when we were talking about political prisoners? Because their
Prisoners.
concern
Absolutely. Yeah.
is that they are afraid of being political prisoners, but they are ignoring existing political prisoners.
Right.
You get me? So
Do you think it's because of the economic aspect of this bill that has brought up everyone to be actively participating in these conversations and the pushback? Because now we know the financial institutions have been directly impacted by this conversation, because they came out uh, strongly with their statements. Civil societies have come out with important statements regarding the same bill. What do we learn? What should we learn from these processes that we can emulate in advocating for others when we are doing advocacy in other spaces? Like, for example, advocating for the release of all political prisoners.
or two
What lessons do
things.
we take from this process?
Two things. One, the statements issued by World Bank and the Uganda Bankers Association, and I think even Mwasa, Makerere
Yeah.
University Academics, and several other people. I have seen them, but those two, World Bank and and the Bankers Association, they have been spooked because the definition of a foreigner catches them. So I don't know why they think they are not foreigners, but they have shown very clearly their identity, that they are not interested in a democratic Uganda. In their memorandums to Parliament, they have one ask in common: provide an exemption for us. You can go ahead with the rest of the bill
Right,
from
right,
other
right, right.
Ugandans.
Yeah, exempt us, exempt us.
Exempt us.
Yeah.
That makes you ask yourself, well, so are you saying as World Bank, you're not concerned that the bill endangers my democratic rights? The bill endangers. So you're not concerned that the bill topples the Ugandan constitutional order. So that shows you what they think of our sovereignty generally. They are
Right.
willing to deal with any government in Uganda, including the most despotic government,
Yeah.
as long as it treats them
They're
as
exempted. Yeah.
a different kind, as good foreigners. So they're saying let the law work on bad foreigners, like Henry Sari and Ssemakadde and others. Those are bad foreigners. For us, we are good foreigners. Remove us
Oh
from the
my
bill.
goodness.
So we now know, and I think some Ugandans didn't know this. Now we know Now you know.
Now we know. Yes.
Bobby Wine, and others, they're out there talking to these people. They have shown who they are in their response to this bill. They don't care.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
They don't care. They have simply said, just exempt us. And the government is going to do exactly that.
Exempt
You
them
know?
and then continue with suppressing
And
everyone
continue,
else.
you can suppress everybody else. Just
Yeah.
exempt us. So the second thing then is for the Ugandan institutions of the people.
Mm.
They they have been naive in their response to this bill. Naive in the sense that
Yeah. Tell us more about that.
most of them are coming from the perspective that these things are not already happening. These things are already
Explicitly. Yeah.
these things
Of
are
course.
already happening.
Yes, that's true.
Eh?
Just implicitly. Now they want to
Let's
legalize
use
them.
Father Sekabida.
Mm.
Father Sekabida was abducted and disappeared for nearly 35 days or something.
Yeah, more than a
And
month. Yes.
the president said that he had involved himself with the NOP.
Mm.
He had involved himself with the NOP, and the army had also issued a statement saying that he was engaged in subversive activities. And when the charge sheet came, they charged him with a money laundering offense. So when you look
Mm.
at all this, you realize that the revenue that Father Sekabida's schools in Karangala were receiving was being treated as foreign funding.
As foreign funds. Yeah.
Sorry. They're out there talking to us. Hold on. They have shown who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's interesting because even Opio has been a victim of this kind of
yes. Yes.
operation. Of course, Dr. Birete's organization has also been uh,
Mm-hmm.
part of the entities that have faced this kind
Dr.
of
Bishop's organization,
operation.
as we speak now, is suspended. Their accounts are
Yeah.
suspended, and so on and so forth. So
Solomon
the
Seruanjaza as well, I think.
mhm. So
So these things are already happening even before the
yes,
bill comes
yes,
in. Yeah.
yes,
Mm.
and so if we had moved to the logically to the conclusion of that logic, they are victims
So
of it.
how then should we have responded? How then should they have responded, given those facts?
Um, again, I conclude by saying that knowing what we know now,
Mm.
we should return focus on political prisoners and the machine that allows political persecution to occur. We should indict
Mm.
institutions like the judiciary because Ugandans are not concerned. For instance, now most of them think that after this they will want this dispute to solved in the courts. But are the courts themselves
Just.
clean and just?
Mm. Yeah.
Where has your campaign been for a clean and just court system?
Mm.
You know, um,
So
the
if we have a
DPP's
broken
office, the police.
legislature, if we have a broken judiciary, and a very weak executive because power is concentrated
Executive
in
is
a
very
few people.
the.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So how do we manage to even engage in these pushback conversations? Where do we push
Yes,
back? How do we balance
yes.
power?
So you've asked the proper question. So exactly what are we engaged in?
Yeah.
So most people have just stopped at submitting their documents at Parliament and feeling good about themselves, celebrating that they've done something good, but they're not going to avail themselves for ancillary conversations around this issue. I don't know why. But like I said, number one, people must make the connection between this bill and political prisoners. That the government finds itself and needing more tools to create political prisoners. Needing more tools. This is a tool to create political prisoners. It's a tool full of political offenses. This is a tool to aid political persecution. So the government has a well-oiled machine for political persecution. It's now retooling it. So why are we not pushing back against the existing tool for political persecution? Shall we retain the focus on the existing tool? Because even if we defeat this bill, the government isn't short of tools to continue. You get me?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Even without this bill, the government will continue political persecution. It will continue endangering Ugandans through its machine of political persecution, which has escaped scrutiny.
Right.
When we came up as the Radical Nuba, that was really the intention. That let us take it to the people of Uganda to understand, number one, that a good lawyer is not when the government tells you to gaganyo. A good lawyer is a courageous lawyer who is committed to the welfare of the public, or the republic, and not just personal individual interests.
Right.
Ahead of the clients they serve. A good lawyer is one who will fight for an independent bench, so that the decision we get from the bench at any level pleases all of us, whether we have won or lost. We have no complaint that the system was rigged. Then there are institutions of government with which most people interact. Are those systems themselves following the law, or they are abused by the rich and powerful? So we have to rescue these institutions from, and I don't know how we can rescue them against the scourge of a life presidency, because it's now very clear that the impacts, what we are struggling with, are the impacts of a life presidency, nothing else.
Right.
There is a very highly motivated group of eating class that wants to maintain a decayed system.
Because they're benefiting from it. Yeah.
Even if the rest of the country is struggling.
Suffering. Yeah.
So how do we then focus on that as well? You talked about the MPs. How do we as Ugandans discipline our MPs? But I think we have done well, because the government, in bringing this bill at the end, it knows that had the bill come earlier, none of these MPs would stand a chance. So it knows that people will discipline them. You get me?
Yeah.
So I think the last question then is how to discipline the presidency. How do we bring meaningful consequences against the executive?
The executive, yeah.
For sponsoring such bills? That's the question out there. Unfortunately, I don't know any spaces. Most of our leading thinkers around that situation have been scattered.
Right.
And this should be a moment for unifying the tributaries of thought around disciplining and checking the executive. Because if we don't get it right, this won't be the last such bill they'll bring.
No.
In fact, the other bills they'll bring are worse.
Well, I think once they have this approved, they are going to have a blank check. They can bring anything, and no one is going to say anything. We may have to try and have these spaces, but they won't be of any civic significance because people in Uganda may not be allowed to engage in these kinds of conversations because it will be they will be detrimental to them. They will face repercussions for engaging.
Talking about that,
Yeah.
I think the bill raises for the diaspora
Mm.
a unique moment. Number one,
Yeah.
it shows that the current government never really accepted the 2009 constitutional reforms. I don't think they were constitutional. So what happened is that in 1995,
Yeah.
when they were debating dual citizenship, some people felt very strongly that it shouldn't be there.
Mm.
But they were overwhelmed by wiser people who had lived in exile, saying, well,
Yeah.
we shouldn't deprive people of citizenship because they're living abroad. It's
Mm.
so they put a clause that Parliament shall, at a time of its choosing, announce a dual citizenship program. It took Parliament 14 years, 2009,
Mm.
14 years to announce the program of dual citizenship. And they put up some scheme, they try to advertise it. I don't know how many Ugandans in the diaspora have benefited.
Dual
But
citizens. Yeah. Yeah.
but it shows that then the government hasn't been permitting diasporans to vote. The government of Rwanda does
Yeah.
to
It
vote and
doesn't
to stand. Huh?
understand. Yeah.
And to stand. The government
Yeah.
of Rwanda does. Other governments do so. There's actually a court order on this matter in the case of, I think, Kalari Stephen versus Attorney
Mm.
General for the Electoral Commission to do more to ensure that both prisoners and Ugandans living in the diaspora enjoy their citizens' right to vote and to participate in the election. That was in 2021. They didn't do that. They haven't done this year, and with such laws, they don't intend to overdo it.
They don't. Yeah.
So that's the first thing, that this bill places focus on the condition of Ugandans in the diaspora, and it colors them as a legitimate population
Legitimate
that can
force.
affect you,
Question. Yeah.
that can affect Ugandan politics, and so it criminalizes all their political activity in these catch-all phrases. So what does that mean for the diaspora community? Number one, it means that you have to wake up and rise to the size of the threat the government has defined for you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we have to become far more sophisticated in how we organize it, because the government thinks we're the only ones that have the freedom, the means, the wherewithal
Mm.
to organize intelligibly, to organize sustainably, and credibly, to change, to end the regime and bring upon a new government. That's what they are saying. That you're a threat to sovereignty.
Right. Yeah, that's
So
exactly what they're saying. Yeah.
that requires a pushback by the diaspora in ways we haven't yet seen. But I'm afraid that this may take long for the diaspora people to catch on.
Well, I think we have caught on it because most of us have been like on the peripherals, right? Peripherals. We have been watching things, participating implicitly in some of these conversations. For instance, I've spent about almost 2 years without hosting this State of the Nation conversation, which I think is very important. Uh, but seeing this happen more explicitly, I think, because I think it's awakening more people now to realize that we can't just stay back and wait for people on the ground to advocate for us without us being actively involved in these conversations and in participating in how the policies in Uganda or the laws in Uganda are drafted to affect us in one way or another. So for us, instead of asking for exemptions, I think the only option we have is to actually be engaged and make these platforms the ground for severe engagement and severe and intentional engagement uh, we as we plan for the way forward for our country, for our motherland, and of course, for people like you who have been actively both on the ground, but also have had an advantage in mentoring people who are on the ground to pursue certain things through the institutions that are available, like the Uganda Law Society and the Radical New Bar. I think this is the moment for us who are on the peripherals.
Henry, I was in Boston some
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Mm.
Boston, Washington, New York.
Mm.
And there was a feeling I got in interacting with our colleagues then
Yeah.
that all other institutions were being trashed. And even when I said that, yes, the institutions, for instance, the society was under capture. But if we just stick to description and do not retake, because the government hasn't done hasn't announced a single coup. It is doing these small coups at a time.
Yeah.
The government will focus on the teachers' union
Yeah.
and dismantle it until it is now shaped and operating like a branch of State House or NRM.
Of government. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
And then move on to the next one and move on to the next one. You can see what they're doing to the music industry.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth.
And by
So
passing this bill, they're also essentially interrupting with research because universities are affected by this because most of the grants come from abroad. Obviously, unless the universities in Kampala have also asked for exemption, but there's going to be very little production of research, and that puts our universities in jeopardy.
they have. But again, like I say, my criticism of that is that I've read what they have submitted. Very few have submitted that even existing laws have themselves been repressive.
Hmm.
You get me?
Yeah.
That currently Ugandans need relief from repression. there's this notion you think that we have been a free nation, breathing well, and now this is the singular threat.
It's
That's
not.
the
Yeah.
yeah. But I was telling you that I found many people in the diaspora very cynical,
Right.
very cynical about the process of retaking sovereignty. And I was like, but you have distance. You have distance from Uganda, and you have some stability. No circumstances. Of course, diaspora is challenging.
Well, it's been cynical for a long time,
Mhm.
but it has also been reluctant because the government wasn't directly touching their investments. Now they are going to be touching our investments directly. So because there's that direct affection
I
to
doubt, I doubt, I doubt it has really occurred that the government is going to. I like the part you've said. They're speaking of forfeiture, forfeiture,
yeah.
attaching
Mm,
your your wealth, dismantling, intervening, disrupting, intercepting
yeah.
your communications, mm, and
Mm.
forcing you to suffer this political persecution. I doubt it has really sunk within the diaspora community. I doubt.
Well, this is our opportunity to create more awareness and to encourage more people to be engaged in this conversation. It's almost 3 hours now. I think we need to
Mm.
wrap up this. We can always come back and engage more. If you have any suggestions of people that you think we should engage more, maybe we can create some kind of panel discussion as well, bring in more brains to engage and evaluate how we can push back on the executive power, because I think that's the biggest obstacle right now to democracy in Uganda.
Yeah, thank you very much. Um, Anyway, for this meeting, just in conclusion, I will repeat that such a bill, its proposal, its conceptualization, its passage through Parliament, and if it ever becomes law and is made to act on a few people before we have it ultimately set aside, it will be because of an operating environment
Mm,
that permits the most perverse results to occur. So we shouldn't only intervene for this with only the bill in mind. We should intervene from a more holistic perspective,
right. Yeah. Mm,
looking at this the state of human rights in the country, the state of the judiciary in the country, because the judiciary is the singular organ to which we all go to check the two political branches, the executive and the legislature,
yeah.
for their misbehavior. Now, the Museveni, when he was swearing in the current Chief Justice, he sent out a press release from his private ranch
Right.
saying it read Museveni hails judicial convergence as Chief Justice Flavian Zeija is sworn in. Judicial
Mm,
convergence means fusion. It
right.
means that for him, he was celebrating a Chief Justice returning to his armpits. Um, and he
Yeah.
was quite
Very.
present. So, how do we retake these institutions? I like that you have invited me as the Radical New Bar president and everything, but I invite the diaspora community to get very interested, very involved in the work of the Radical New Bar and sustaining it
Yeah.
and supporting us. because all these NGOs you thought could fight for you, they're the first ones they took out. You know, in December, they arrested Virete. In early January, they issued a lot of suspension letters to all these NGOs. They froze their accounts.
And I think that's what they intend to do with this bill if it's approved, with everyone who they will approve as agent as well. They want to
then they
have
took
easy
out your
access to
leaders.
suspending. Yeah.
They took out your leaders. All the NUP deputies were being hunted, put on charge sheets. When I was made the subject of a conviction, I didn't see the diaspora discuss the implications of what it means for the Law Society president to be now. So they, but at least I'm grateful that my council colleagues understood and said, Isaac, you had always said we should run our government under 4Ds. This is probably a 5th D, the diaspora. So we shall support you to be in the diaspora and bring this message of their active participation in bringing about an independent bar, an independent judiciary, and independent institutions of governance that serve the people instead of serving power. Now, it did occur then, but now it must occur. There's an advantage in having the president of the law within our midst.
I know, absolutely. That's why I was like, this is the perfect person.
But I don't see
right now.
But I don't see you are the first invitation, for instance.
More people are going to invite you now.
I don't see the tickets coming for us to sit, because some things we don't have to discuss very openly like this. We can discuss,
absolutely,
and build the force that will take this country. This job can't be done by one person.
No.
And yet at the same time, we can't be too many. Like I said, these guys are not very smart. They they came up with some form of law through AI.
Right.
So they're not very smart. We can defeat them, but how do we ensure that they don't hide behind our institutions? They hide behind our legitimacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the job of ripping them apart from our legitimacy is what we are failing. Our storytelling is not coordinated. Our storytelling does not represent the sum of our parts. There's special history, special knowledge, special stories we have. Like, for instance, I've told you that this bill is a massive distraction.
Yeah.
If this entire movement we have seen in just 1 week was asking for political prisoners, where do you think we would be?
Very far.
Are you getting me?
Yeah. Well,
if all these
I think you have
all these
a very good point
petitions,
in regards to
if all these petitions, were saying that no, the problem of political prisoners has gone too far, you need to do something about it, and so on and so forth. So that kind of course, that comes from unique knowledge. People may not see the connections.
Yeah, they may not.
But we can help them make those connections.
And I think that's what we are going to do, to awaken people through educating them and having these conversations more often. I guess we should take this as a blessing in disguise, because it is awakening more people all over, both in Uganda and in the diaspora. And I think we can use it as a springboard to recreate the civic spaces that are being shut down in Uganda on a regular basis.
In the Gambia, I'll close with the example of the Gambia.
Okay.
this situation, this bill represents exactly what happened in the last days of Yahya Jammeh. Yahya Jammeh had caused such a massive repressive state, including the capture of the country's leading intellectuals. If you wanted to have a career in Uganda or in the Gambia,
yeah,
you have to be a part
of the
of
system.
Yahya Jammeh's autocratic rule. Yes. And I think that's what we have in Uganda as well.
For now, that is what is happening actually, which is completely
the
unacceptable.
Gambian diaspora, after many failed attempts, organized in a uniquely special way, which I task you, Henry, to find out how they got this person who was working in, is it called Tesco? What is the UK supermarket called?
Tesco, yes, Tesco. He was a security guard, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Tesco, yeah.
So how did a person come from being a Tesco security guard
To becoming the president,
to becoming the embodiment of Gambian sovereignty? That is our work now in the diaspora, because it seems like we are gonna need an Uber driver in New York.
I know.
We have to create a structure,
yeah,
that supports radical sovereignty that way. We have to be so angry. You have to be so angry that they could erase your sovereignty.
That's true.
So our response mustn't stop at just submitting memoranda, but it must be in the ways, how do other diaspora communities organize, and how have they organized? But the Uganda has a unique history of organizing from the diaspora to return democracy. Not just Uganda, but it seems that has been the whole history.
The norm for many,
of democracy.
Democracies
In Uganda. So we have to be more intentional. Some of us have contribution. I mean, like you said, when we've had impact, we've had some impact at the risk of being immodest. As the Uganda said, I don't think we would have had such impact if I'd stayed in the country. So my existence in the diaspora has offered the Uganda Law Society a vantage point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Within which to continue the project of the Radical Nuba that wouldn't have been possible if I was in the country.
Yeah, you would be a BSG right now if you had decided to stay in the country. Be in the same position as BSG is, and Mwanga and all other folks that have been intentional in advocating for democracy, true democracy in Uganda. But yeah, I think we should continue having these conversations loudly, implicitly, explicitly, in whichever way that is possible. And I want to commend most of the folks that you have been working with on a regular basis. Of course, Dr. Biret has been fundamental in having this conversation. I guess again, I want to appreciate the Stella Nyanzis, Kakwenza, many folks who are already engaging in these conversations to continue engaging in these conversations. I want to thank the folks who have been commenting: Godfrey Iga, Mimi, Buki, Namata, of course. Thank you so much for engaging with us. Who else? Okada. Alfred, I think that's your colleague at the Radical Nuba. Okada Power, Alfred. The Tech Elite. Thank you so much. Who else? Mr. Ukenya Kenneth. Thank you so much. I'm going to invite President Ssemakadde to come back. This time I want you to come back with some folks from the Radical Nuba as we interrogate how we should try to push back the executive, right? I think that's very important for us to figure out. And as you said, we don't need, no one needs to do what these folks did. What we need to do is to continue having these tough conversations and be deliberate on how we want our country to proceed. Thank you, Mr. Timothy Byongera. I know it's a Sunday. You want to go? It's okay, you can go. We are done anyway. So next time we shall stick to 2 hours. This time we had some technical issues, but we have resolved those ones. And hopefully next time it's going to be much more easier. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great Sunday evening.
Thank you,
Isaac, you can stay on. We can talk. I want us to talk a little bit more.
All right.
Yeah, just a moment.
Thank you for teaching me this tech. I wasn't familiar with it.
This is the state of the nation. Rifa Mwanga. We are deliberate, we are reasonable, we are uncensored. The state of the nation with Henry Salah.